So just imagine a 12-year-old tween asking her mother and father if she was adopted and asking that question repeatedly. When I was a lot older, like early 20s, I asked my mother, why do you think I kept asking you, many years back if I was adopted? And then one day she said to me, well, maybe it was because people kept asking me if I was yours because you looked so dark. Many years later, when I was doing my doctorate, I had a bout of fibromyalgia. I couldn't understand why. It was my third bout. I was making this connection that maybe it was something that I embodied. I realized that it was something that I needed to research. I think it led to my getting into the area of spirit injury intervention.
Welcome everyone to our channel, Meta Transitions. I am your host, Tricia K. Williams, and I just want to thank you for being here. Just to let you know, upcoming, we have guests that are going to share their transition stories with you, talk a bit about their lives, and also, share tips that are going to help you with your transition stories. Stay tuned.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Meta Transitions. I am your host, Tricia K. Williams, and I'm here with Dr. Helen Z. Dr. Helen is a spirit injury interventionist whose passion is helping women align body, mind, spirit, and financial wellness. Welcome, Dr. Helen, to our show.
Thank you so much for having me, Tricia K. It's an honor and indeed a privilege to be with you tonight. Thank you.
Yes, definitely. All right, Dr. Helen, let's get right into it. What is your transition story?
Well, it begins, if I can sort of take you on a little backward journey, it kind of all began around the time I was about 12 years old. Mm-hmm. So just imagine a 12-year-old tween asking her mother and father if she was adopted and asking that question repeatedly. Yeah. And them pulling out everything they could from baptismal certificate to whatever pictures they could find of me. And you can tell by the hair that I was born in an era when parents didn't take that many pictures of their children. So I continued to ask that question. And I know it was probably very frustrating for them because I looked, my father is now deceased, but according to my brother, I'm the spitting image of him. So, I guess the fact that I kept asking repeatedly if I was adopted. So that was one part of the story. The other part of the story I connected with when I was a lot older, probably a young woman around the age of 20, like early 20s. And that time I asked my mother, why do you think I kept asking you, many years back if I was adopted? And she said, well, I'm not sure. She said, I don't know. And then one day she said to me, well, maybe it was because people kept asking me when I was carrying you around as a baby if I was yours because you looked so dark. Mm-hmm. So given what people say about babies hearing stories, hearing information, hearing voices, it's quite likely that as a baby, even though I didn't verbalize it, it probably was imprinted, embedded in me. And I can only conclude that by the time I was about 12 years of age, it surfaced and I needed to know, what was the real deal? Was I adopted? So that kind of got buried for a bit. Mm-hmm. And it surfaced again, the connection surfaced again many years later when I was doing my doctorate. And when I was doing my doctorate, I had a bout of fibromyalgia. Yeah. And I couldn't understand why. It was my third bout. And I started journaling and as I journaled, I was making this connection that maybe it was something that I embodied.
Mm.
So, okay, so the stories get hopefully a little clearer. So as I began to delve into information around what I call spirit injury, energy, and so forth, I then made the connection. I made the connection to my fibromyalgia, and I made the connection to I also had a thyroid problem. So I made the connection to both of them. And the connection is that when I was born, or as a baby, between the ages of whenever my mom was carrying me around as a baby, I likely was questioning my identity. So that's an energy piece that is what I refer to as the first energy stage. And then as I matured, or as I grew, I won't say matured, as I grew around the age of 12, then I wanted to know the truth. Then I wanted to know my story. And that's when I began to question. And in putting the pieces together and in doing more research, I realized that the connection again was my energy centers. And as I explored it and looked more into it, I realized that the first energy center that was embedded in me from infancy manifested itself in many health challenges, some of which is like TMI, but it did manifest in many health challenges, as did my quest to get my story, my truth. That also manifested in a health challenge. And that health challenge was my thyroid problem. And I also had a lot of problems with my throat, colds and coughs and tonsillitis and on and on and on. And as I continued going down this road of putting these pieces together, I realized that it was something that I needed to research. That became the focal point of my research. And I had focus groups of women.
Right. Yeah.
And these focus groups of women, I had them tell stories about things that happened to them as they were growing, as they were from infancy right on to where they were at the time when we met as a focus group. And as I put all of those pieces together and looked at it, I realized I think I have something here that I can use to heal myself and also to heal other women. Mm-hmm. So that is what I would define as my transition story, my aha moment. Yeah. And I think it led to my getting into the area of spirit injury intervention. And probably saying, what is spirit injury? I'm asking the question.
Yes, no, definitely. And if I can interject here, I think I relate a lot to what you're saying, that idea of, the mind could be connected to the body and having sort of somatic experiences, right? Connected to identity and existentialism, right? So that idea of questioning, who you are based on experiences that you've had in your life. And also sort of that idea of, these experiences, like you talked about, hearing other people question your identity, then you later on started questioning your own identity as well. But it starts somewhere, right? So those little pockets of doubt, right? And that was sort of my story, where there are little pockets of doubt that people would place as a kid. They would just sort of place pockets of doubt around just harmlessly to them, right? But then you realize, like, as you're growing, those pockets of doubt, there was a seed planted at some point, and then you start to manifest these doubts later on in life. So definitely, I'm intrigued now to hear more about, what this means for you and your research.
Okay. Well, when I met with my committee of 3 and told them that I wanted to look at what was embedded in me as a child, and how that showed up in my life, and how I wanted to look at the issue of intergenerational trauma. And one of the women who I desperately wanted to have on my committee said to me, "No, if you use the word trauma, I'm not going to be on your committee." And my internal voice was saying, "What you talking about?" Like, what you mean?
Yeah.
And so then we talked about it a bit. And one of the women, one of the members of my committee said, "Well, maybe we can say spirit murder." I said, "No, but we don't die.
Yeah.
We don't die from what I'm feeling." I said, "I think it's more," and we talked back and forth, and finally came to the end result, which was spirit injury, which is about the various ailments, emotional, physical, mental, and even financial, that we have as a consequence. Mm-hmm. So the term intergenerational spirit injury came out of that discussion.
Wow. Look at that, and I think a lot of times, if we as individuals would sort of just check in with ourselves, right, and our experiences, how much, we could impart to the world, because it sounds like you taking the time to think about those, poignant experiences and transitional points in your life led to you having this groundbreaking research that I think is so important for women, out there to do this work, right, and gain this sense of awareness and healing.
Well, I know when I started doing the work, one of my concerns was maybe I shouldn't just be focusing on women. I was having an issue with that because I looked at all of this along the matrilineal line. And when I raised that with my husband, he said, "Well, if guys want to do something like this, then let them do it. You're a woman and you want to do this with women, because this is who you are, and it makes sense for you to do that." And so I kind of went along merrily, but in more recent years, I decided that it really is good to just focus on women, because what is our first home? Our first home is our mother's womb. So I thought, if that's our first home, let's look at it from that perspective, from the home that we were in initially to where we are today. So then it kind of, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing, this with us. It's so insightful already. I have so many questions, but I'll stick on target, right? I'll stick on target. So, okay. So you currently started this research. I'm wondering, what impact did this have on your life? Because you talked about this idea of doing this research so that it could help you. And did you receive that help? And how did that manifest in your life?
It came about through, through my continued reflection. It came about through me digging more into what this whole thing meant around energy, because then I began to think of it as energy that I embodied. So as I looked more into the research around energy, and have you heard of chakras?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And when I came across that, I realized that the first chakra is about identity. And I looked at some of the issues that I have, physical issues, issues around finance, and so on and so forth. I saw this really tied to an imbalance in that first stage. And then I looked further at this energy center and realized when that occurs around age 12, I saw that can mean that people who have an imbalance here can end up with, a thyroid problem, and I do have a thyroid problem, and that it's about speaking truth and so forth. Yeah. So I'm further into, what do I need to do to balance these things? What do I need to do to make myself better? So keep saying realize, I found that the first center is really about embracing myself in red.
Mm-hmm.
So I always make sure I have my red.
Okay.
And
Yeah, nice.
and then there were certain stones that I started to use because they also help me to balance that center.
Yeah.
And I also recognized that what I needed to do in terms of my throat was to journal more and to try to speak my truth. And the more I did that in those two areas in particular, the more I noticed that I was becoming stronger and better, and I was showing up in a way that I appreciated.
Yes. Yes. No, it sounds powerful, in the sense that if you're able to take a look at the 8 centers that you're talking about, or chakras, and I have heard of chakras, and identify, what's going on for you, then you're able to identify which areas you need to improve on and the things that you need to do that can help with alignment and balance in your life. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like by you being able to do those things, it was able to bring healing for you.
Yeah. And of course, I realized that if it helped me, then wouldn't it help other people? Wouldn't it help other women? Given that that's who I wanted to deal with. And I don't have a lot of clients, but I will admit that the clients I have received the kind of help and support that they've needed and have made tremendous progress.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely, definitely. And one of the big things that I like to share here are tips and tools, right? So people can walk away with something that they can do, within their own home or space that can make a difference for them, right? And one thing I'm already walking away with is going and identifying what, chakra is out of alignment for me, right? Or even just looking up your research to identify what are these, 8 different concepts that you have.
I didn't actually mention that in my dissertation, but my website and my courses, my website is being tweaked and not available at this point. At this point, I think I saw a message earlier indicating that it's probably ready to go live. But I can say that there's 7 chakras, and I can say that of those 7 centers, they're kind of connected to parts of the body, which is interesting. So the first one, as by way of a tip, the first one is connected to like the groin area. And the first one, if one has an imbalance there, you may have issues with constipation. You may have issues with maybe being overweight. You may have issues with money, maybe spending too much, not knowing how to control money, maybe even buying more than you need. Well, that's spending too much. Being a slight hoarder. Then the next center is like around just below the navel. And that one's associated with things like gallstones and digestive problems and so forth. And that one is also affiliated or associated with how powerful one feels. If you feel a sense of personal power or a lack of, if you feel a lack of, then it says that there's something out of sync with that energy center. And if there's a constant need to blame others for things that happen in your life, it's also evidence of an imbalance in that area. Then as we move up, there's one that's kind of around the stomach area. And that one is more sort of digestive issues. Then we move up to the heart and the lung. And this one here is where people feel that they're not loved. They feel that They can't forgive. They feel that they're not worthy of love. They may also experience issues with their lung. They may also have issues with their heart, because this is where that energy is. And then the next one is the throat. And people who have an imbalance there tend to have issues with their thyroid. They may also have challenges with speaking, not verbalizing, or not pronouncing words, but they may find that the clarity of their speech and their being able to put their thoughts together may be somewhat compromised. And then the next one is here, and that is our ability to see both physically and intuitively.
Yes.
So can the person see the big picture? Can they see what's going on in their life? And the final one is like above your head. And this one is, are you connected to the universe? Are you connected to something that's bigger than who you are? So, I mean, it's a little bit more in detail than that, but that's kind of like just a broad stroke of the 7 different areas.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Well, thank you for sharing that, right? So it gives individuals out there an opportunity to at least identify maybe which chakra is out of alignment, and then be able to, go a little deeper with that specific one to identify what to do with it. No, thank you so much for sharing that, for sure. All right. So as a way of, I guess wrapping everything up, if there are, I guess, individuals out there who, would like to contact you or would like to, do some work with alignment, balancing, women specifically, how can they contact you?
Would you like me to type my email address, or would you want to use what you have? I can type it in chat. But while
you can type it in the chat for sure.
While I'm typing it in chat, I just wanted to mention with the 2 areas that I spoke of, which I think are fairly common with women, the throat and the root. The root is kind of the first energy center, and that one is the one that many people need to work on first, because it's like, think of it as a tree. And the tree needs to have a good, steady, strong structure in the ground. It needs to be rooted in the ground. So I often suggest that people work in that area. And one of the things that they can do, if they're feeling that, they have some issue around things like, particularly like constipation and issues with their bones, which is also something that is very prevalent with people who have challenges in that area. There are some stones that they can use, and they can meditate or wear the stones as jewelry, as a ring or whatever. And so some of the stones are the red stones. So that center is red. And one of the things that one should also do is just embody yourself, or surround yourself, not embody yourself, but surround yourself in red. So red food, red clothing, even something red in your home, a red cushion, or whatever the case may be. It just strengthens the root, the first energy center. And the other thing that one can do is just stamp and kind of connect with the ground. It's pretty soon we're not going to be able to do that, but the suggestion is taking off your shoes and just walking in the earth, walking in the grass, to make that connection with the earth, because you want to be rooted. So that's what that's all about. And just kind of stomping and even saying out loud, I deserve to be here. I'm here and I deserve to be here.
Yes.
So that's that particular energy center, which is the one that people need to kind of work on, I would say first, because, we want to have strong roots.
The sense of feeling grounded and planted in the ground. And so not just physically planted on the ground, but also planted within our sense of self and who we are.
And then the other one I would like to mention, and maybe I'm being a little selfish, is this one. A lot of women end up with thyroid problems. You hear of women with thyroid cancer and so forth. And for that one, it's really finding a way to not only seek truth, but also speak your truth and continue to tell yourself that you deserve to be able to speak your truth and kind of affirm that and believe that and share that with others. Yeah. And one of the quick ways of doing it also is by writing about it, reflecting as a way of doing that. And then surround yourself this time, not necessarily in red, but in blue. So this stone here, you probably can't notice it. My blue turquoise and this turquoise, these are the kinds of stones that one can wear, or if you don't want to wear them, if you're not into jewelry, if you'd like, you can place the stones around you as you meditate. And as I said, surround yourself in blue and eat blue foods, eggplant, blueberries. Mm-hmm. So those are a couple of the tips that I would give to people about strengthening and balancing that part of the body.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that specifically, and, if we know anything about biology anyway, we know the thyroid is, associated with hormones and mood and stuff like that. So all the things that you're talking about are great for, emotion regulation and, good for even the vitamins that you get from blueberries and eggplant and stuff like that are really good for emotion regulation as well. Right. So not only is it helping with physical ailment and issues, it's also helping, as you said, with alignment as well. Right. So it's amazing tips for sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. All right. Well, it was great having you, Dr. Helen, with us and for sharing your tips. Definitely would love to have you on again.
I would love to come back again. I thank you for inviting me. This was a wonderful opportunity. And thank you so much for having me. I can say that one of the things that I would love to do as well, if people contact me, I've put together a webinar, which is kind of an introductory one. And for people who email me, I'm more than happy to invite them to this very short webinar. It's about an hour. Well, not about, it is an hour and it's free. It's an introductory one. And I'd love for people to email me and I can send the invite to them to come and participate in that webinar.
Perfect. Wonderful. Okay, everybody. So you heard it from Dr. Helen. We're going to put Dr. Helen's information in the description box below. So I'll put her email, info@drhelenz.com. And hopefully when your website's up, Dr. Helen, I can add it there as well. And, take away some tips, everyone, from what Dr. Helen said. Go check out what chakra area you need work on, and start with those roots and grounding techniques and being firm in who you are as a person, and then work your way up from there. All right. Well, there you have it. Take care until next time.
Well, thank you for watching. We really appreciate that you made it all the way to the end. Please like this video and subscribe. Also, hit that notification bell if you would like to watch new videos that we publish. There might be friends and family that you know who might benefit from the tips that were shared. Just share it with them and watch another video. Thank you so much.